Nobody wants to stop them from doing that. Now people say, well, they got, yes, but that's poverty they bring in here with them. Black folk didn't bring poverty with them. It was given to us as a gift. After the Civil Rights Movement, what they wanted to do was say, let's bury the issue with black folk. And they gave our civil rights leaders a chance after the Civil Rights Movement that made the difference. They didn't take it. Our black leadership displayed inappropriate behavior coming out of the Civil Rights Movement. Throughout the Civil Rights Movement, when they should have been focusing on the real issue, they didn't do it. Instead of focusing on correcting the historical damage that had been inflicted on black folk, they started messing around with civil rights and integration. And never touched the problem. Ran all over the country, thinking that by taking down the signs over the water fountains or the bathrooms about colored only or black only, that they were dealing with racism. They didn't even touch racism. Racism was 3 stories down. Getting a black folk to sit in a white restaurant or sit on the front of a bus has no meaning at all. The second thing they did was they never had a plan. They ran all over the country from one demonstration, one march to the next one, never had a national plan about what they're going to do when they get there and what the next generation of blacks are going to do. And thirdly, they never built an institution to carry out a national plan. And when they did that, whites then changed their policy on blacks. They figured out black folk have displayed this inappropriate behavior and missed the boat. So what they did then, they said, let's put the moves on them. Johnson then wrote a law saying, you got to correct the conditions of black folk in 1965, what's called the Affirmative Action Bill. When that came out, they put the moves on us to smother the issue again. Affirmative action was supposed to have been intended to correct those structural inequities between blacks and whites that have occurred as a direct result of all those years of things I'm talking about. As soon as the bill came out, whites immediately started changing it and black leadership bought it. The issue was supposed to be going this way. Watch how they flip the glasses upside down on you. The issue was supposed to be correcting historical what has happened to blacks historically by racism and discrimination. They switched and said, let's not talk about historical, let's talk about present day and the future. You're supposed to have been dealing with racism, which means group-based. They said, no, forget about that. Let's deal with individual discrimination. The issue was supposed to have been focusing on dealing with things that have happened to black folk. They changed it. No, let's deal with issues pertaining to everybody. Women, gays, handicapped, everything else. And when they did that, they destroyed affirmative action. Don't even waste your time even chasing affirmative action anymore. It's been destroyed. It was supposed to be helping black folk. Now, what the other groups did, they said, now that somebody put out a law to help black folk, how do we become equal to blacks? And that's when the Hispanics jumped up this thing called Hispanic, the concept. Before that, we didn't have anything called Hispanic. But they thought in the early 60s that black folk might get some out of the civil rights movement. So what they did, they went to the table and came up with a whole term called Hispanic. They said, let's go all over the world and find everybody that speaks Spanish and pretend they're equal to black folk. And let's pretend that the Spanish language has been handicapped, Jim Crowed, enslaved, hung, lynched, decapitated, and everything else, and therefore is entitled to be treated like a black person. And they fabricated a new race called Hispanics. So now that means any person coming from Spain, Portugal, Philippines, any place, say, I'm a Hispanic, I'm equal to black folk. And the worst part about it, and then every time you hear a report about poverty, they'll go compare Hispanic poverty with black poverty. Nobody ever stops and hold a second, you got to quit playing that game, you're smothering the issue. The poverty on black folk is poverty that's been there for 400 years. That's the same old poverty they've been dealing with for 400 years, and you got rolling poverty. You keep having Hispanics coming into the country and comparing the poverty they're bringing into this country with the poverty that's been with black folk for 400 years.
All right, hello everybody. This is Jay from K&J What 5 HT channel, coming right back at you. We're here. We talk about World Health Academia Times. That's what that WHAT stands for, the acronym for what. And the 5 H's is when we're working with the truth. And for people that find it difficult for the truth, we say that the truth first is hard. The truth hurts. The truth helps. The truth is healthy, and ultimately the truth heals. That's how we deal with it on this channel. We be covering a wide range of topics. However, today is going to be something maybe just a little bit different here. When I say different, not just totally different, but I want to try to highlight a few things, being that a lot of people say this is Black History Month, being the last day of February today. I want to talk a little bit about a few people that we can fit into this category of what we call Black History Month. I hate to use that term because for me, Black history is history, period. You don't allocate a month or a time or a season over it. It's a lasting thing. So I'm just doing this because I just want to highlight a few things to most of the audience that I be dealing with. Of course, we always talk about bridging this gap between our generations, and the generations that we normally deal with is what you first call the Great Generation, which is from 1901 to 1927. Then you have what they call the Silent Reserve Generation, which is 1928 to 1945. That was the rebuilding after World War II. Now, what I mainly focus on this channel in most cases are who we call the baby boomers, man. They are from 1946 to 1964. And behind that, you have the Gen X, or the latch and key generation, which is 1965 to 1980. Then we roll down to our millennials from 1981 to 1996. And then we get to this generation that we deal with today, which is Gen Z, the social media, tech, high-tech, smartphone, business-oriented, education-driven generation, which is from 1997 to 2012. And our last generation that's we categorize, anyway, would be Generation Alpha. That would be the generation from 2013 to present. These are the people we mostly focus on. And when I say bridging the gap, there is, if we can accept it and admit it, that there is a huge gap of miscommunication, misunderstandings, lack of trust when it comes to these generations. Everybody, each one got one to say about the other one. And the way I deem it is, the baby boomers and the Gen Xers would be the generation that I'll classify as the conventional oven, that slow cooker, the one that you can prepare real meals from, healthy meals that help you grow and be who you need to be, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually, and all of the above. And then I deal with the millennial and the Gen Z, and people like to call them the microwave generation. Everything fast, quick, because that's the way they operate. We move in a fast, quick, 24/7 world. So everything has to come fast. Like right now, a lot of times we don't have patience. We want it now. We need that thing to happen like right away, and so they move fast. But my thing is, in most kitchens, you'll always see, like I say, you will see that the conventional oven and the microwave actually coexist in the same kitchen. They both do what they're designed to do, and they work in harmony. And that's the way I feel we should be able to come together and be able to do and work in harmony. That's through communication, understanding, and all the above. So we have to give each other even the grace that the Most High give us all. And when I say it might be a little different today, I'm going to talk about a few people that, like in my time in the education arena, they mostly dealt with Black history in the month of February as usual, and you normally get the same people. They always talk about the same people. I don't know how much that has changed, but I know right now today academia has gone in another direction. Then you have some people say they want to totally erase history. That's impossible to do, and I'm gonna tell you why I say that's impossible to do. See, a lot of things that's taught in the educational arena or in the field of academia, it should be talked about and taught at home anyway. The school teachers should not have to be our children's babysitter. They should not have to be our children's primary teacher, or the one that help develop ideologies or indoctrinations. That should come from the home. That should come from the table, which we don't do the table deal anymore. However, even if you don't do the table deal, conversating and communicating and knowing where your child is in this present day and time, being this present day and time is so, man, it's so unforgiving. It's such an unforgiving world. So we need to know, and we need to be alert of that, and we need to be able to dialogue with our children and grandchildren, and vice versa, the children with the mothers and fathers and the grandmothers and the great grandmothers. We should be able to do that, and I feel it a necessity to do it. And men, please, we need to stand up and stick up. I've been trying to get this particular post out throughout the week. I started working on it Tuesday. However, I kind of surfaced through social media. I happened to run across a live today that really it was very informative. My brother, I'm gonna call him VC. He know who he is. He said some things, and some things that I can actually I can actually conspire with those things. I understand exactly where he's coming from. Sounds to be very astute in the audience that he carries. And I just happened to run across the channel. It's been a couple of weeks ago, but I saw him today. And man, after getting off of that live with him today, it just inspired me to go ahead on and push this, because I heard a few things that was said about a couple of people that I had already put on my studies to actually talk about. And actually, two of the names that I had in my notes here came up on the live, and I was like, wow. I mean, that's like something else. So I felt to come in, and I just want to, right now, I want to lay something out to my millennials and my Generation Z. Generation X and baby boomers, you guys may know a little bit about this. You may know all of it. However, I just want to just put out what maybe the Z and the millennials, they probably, I'm more than certain they know a couple of these names that I'm going to expose today or talk about today. And there might be a name or two that they're not familiar with. I just want, and it's across a broad spectrum, as you will see once I present them, from activists to musicians and politicians and the likes, okay? So let us get ready to roll, and let us get into this. And my question is really, to start this dialogue, would be the calm before or after the storm. The calm before or after the storm. I've heard a meteorologist talk about how sometimes when that bad weather come through, and you have a cell that come through that's going to produce these horrific winds and all of that stuff, sometimes you get this silent before you get the storm. And then even with hurricanes, you get the roaring of the storm on the front end, and then you get the eye of the storm where everything goes back to like it's pleasant. But then the backside of the storm comes and hit, which is far worse than even the front part of the storm. So what I'm trying to do is relate this to our life and our decision making, the valley of decisions. And I know for people that have done church, I don't like to use that word a lot. I'm just going to say the building. When you've done the building, you've probably heard of the term the valley of decisions before. So this is when your decision actually have impact on your life moving forward, your decision making. So what I'm going to do is I want to start off with actually in the early 1900s, going close to the mid 1900s. We're going to start with a young man by the name of Emmett Till. I know a lot of people have heard about it because it has, as of late, really become more popular than it was when I was younger. Because I didn't hear about Emmett Till until I was actually residing in Detroit. I spent the first first part of my life, my young adult life, in Memphis, where I was born and raised. And then after that, I went to Detroit, spent about 25 years in Detroit, and I found my way back to Memphis. And now I've relocated again, but still, this thing is something. So this Emmett Till, who was a young man, a native of Chicago, Illinois. He was born July the 25th, 1941. And he decided to make a trip. Decision maker. He wanted to go down and visit his people down in Mississippi, right outside of Greenwood. Kay, she lived in Greenwood, so she knew a lot about this because it was often talked about. So it's right outside of Greenwood, Mississippi. He goes down to visit his people, and his mom gave him marching orders, we'll say, the do's and the don't. You're going down south now, son. It's nothing like up here. It's not anything like up north. I want you to go down there. I need you to be careful. However, let's fast forward. Emmett Till decided he still comes down, and he lives with relatives. And an incident happened, and he was accused of actually engaging with a European lady. I'm gonna use that word. And in that time and day, that was not a good thing. Even if you were walking on the sidewalk, being black. In those days, Jim Crow era, KKK still around, you actually had to get off the sidewalk and allow them to walk on the sidewalk. Listen up, millennials and Gen Z, some of the stuff that you've never, ever dream of experiencing. I just want to show you something. I want to take you somewhere. I'm trying to get you to understand how we got to where we are now and the decisions that was made with baby boomers and Gen Xers. So Emmett Till engaged with, well, we say allegedly engaged with this European woman, and she went back and told her people about it, and they were outraged. And that night they went to Emmett Till relative's house. They removed him from the house. They tortured the young man. They did all they could to the young man before finally unaliving him via lynching and discarded him in the Tallahatchie River. And that was such a tragedy. So he was born, like I said, in July 25th, 1941. At the age of 14, this happened to him. And he was out of here by August 28, 1955. This would be, if you was a baby boomer by this time, you would be, if you was born at the beginning, which is 1946, you would be 9 years old when this happened with Mr. Emmett Till. And it was tragic. It was a tragedy that spread it across the states, the United States. It actually spread it like wildfire. And later, we'll say, according to the BBC reporting, Carolyn Bryan Dunham, which is the lady that accused him, she accused the 14-year-old Emmett Till in 1955. She told historian Timothy Tyson in 2008 that her testimony was not true. Testimony not true. I mean, she actually said parts of the story was fabricated, but she didn't publicly confess what she told the historian. However, she continued to go on with it. She was afraid. So, a made-up story. And now we have Emmett Till no more. Sad story. Fast forward. We're going to go to a famous jazz musician. She was actually an artist, a singer. Billie Holiday, born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was born April 7th, 1915. She was like a well-known artist. She was loved by the other side as well as our side. However, she had a few woes against her. She had a bumpy road. At the age of 11, it was allegedly that she was sexually assaulted, something she had to deal with. From there to foster care homes, another tragedy she has to deal with, until she discovered this wonderful voice of hers, and she used it to become an uprising and a famous, popular jazz singer. And she was really loved until 1939. At the age of about 24, still a young lady, she ran across a poem that was written by a Jewish guy. Or that's what they say. And it was in poem style. And the poem was called Strange Fruit. And Strange Fruit was kind of a poem that was designed to show all the bad and wrong things that was going on in the South when it came to the blacks in the South. And it was a song that was very, very controversial. At that time, a poem, and it was first sung by the guy that wrote it by his wife at some union meeting. And after that, it comes across the hands of Billie Holiday. Now, she sang this very controversial song called Strange Fruit. And the Strange Fruit was revealing the lynching that was going on across the entire southern part of the United States, explicitly in places like Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, and the lynchings. And the Strange Fruit was pertaining to the men and the women that these atrocities happened to. And you could actually be riding down the road and see the results of a lynching still there, vivid, a reminder. Be cool, be quiet, because this could happen to you. However, Billie Holiday decided at one of her performances that she would sing this song. And when she sung the song, that decision that she made right there was the turning point, the absolute turning point in her life, outside of all of the demons that she struggled with. She sings this song, and the audience is mainly European, and they sit there with this strange look on their face. She had already been ordered by a lot of people, don't do it, don't sing this song. People in high places, you know what I'm saying, don't sing this song. She decided to sing the song, and of course, from that point, she used her voice to speak against what she deemed wrong, you know? By doing so, she became a target of harassment from the federal government. This helped her career spiral downwardly. And the drugs and all the other things that she was involved in just magnified. And Billie Holiday, at the young age of, how old was she? 44 years old. When she was found in the hospital unalived. Of course, they had things saying that there were reasons for that her final chapter of the days in her life. But if you spoke to other people, you would understand and know that it was a lack of attention. She had already been targeted by people in high places for singing the song "Strange Fruit." Look up the song one day and listen to it. See what you get out of it. She was speaking out. She used her voice. She used her talent. She sacrificed who she was and everything she was about to get a message across that she felt was severely wrong. And she paid the penalty, the valley of decisions. And we move from there to our next guy, Mr. Medgar Evers. But before we go there, I want to give a quote from Emmett Till's mom. This is a quote from Emmett Till's mom. She said, "When people saw what had happened to my son, men stood up who never stood up before." I don't know if that affected Billie Holiday or not, but something happened. Something happened, a movement started. And even Billie Holiday, her quote was, "If I am going to sing like someone else, then I don't need to sing at all." That was a quote from Billie Holiday. So now with that quote from Emmett Till moms, let's say men stood up that never stood up before. And that brings me to Medgar Evers. Medgar Evers was a guy that actually, he was very active well before Martin and all that. He really set the tone. He was a guy outside of Mississippi as well. He came from Decatur, Mississippi. And Medgar was born July the 2nd, 1925. And Medgar did a lot of wonderful things. Medgar was a powerful man. Medgar was a man of integrity. He was very informed. Actually, I would say MLK was tutored by Medgar, if you ask me, because Medgar was far in the movement when MLK just wanted to be he just wanted to be a preacher. That's it. That's it. He just wanted to be a preacher. But Medgar, after hanging around Medgar and being a part of these organizations that they were a part of, Medgar's caught Martin's ear. So now here's Medgar here, pushing for the people, speaking up for the rights, the civil rights, even the Civil Rights Act that we say that Martin really pushed. But let's take it back further. Medgar Evers would be that guy. However, after a famous speech on WLBT TV in Jackson, Mississippi, in May of 1963, after that famous speech that Medgar gave on national TV, guess what? Right at 30-some days later, Medgar was unalived at his home in the driveway. And the accomplice almost got away, but eventually got walked down. Same case like Carolyn Bryan Dunham said that she falsely accused Emmett Till. So this guy was actually on the verge of getting away with unaliving or robbing Medgar of life. That's something else. Less than 30 days after the speech on a national TV, engaging in front of a national TV audience, the tragedy happens again. I can't make this up. I'm telling you, I cannot make this up. And see, what the thing about it is, Medgar met and collaborated with the Civil Rights Act with MLK in the 1950s and the 1960s, right? They worked together as representatives of the NAACP and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Would ever inviting Martin, MLK, to Mississippi for an event and briefly serving as assistant secretary for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957. This is according to a Stanford University peer review. Now, in the early 50s and 60s, Medgar, I would say he tutored Martin. But however, after that speech on national TV, less than 30 days later, Medgar is no more. Look at the chain of events. Keep up with these dates. Millennials and Gen Zers. X's and boomers as well. But keep up with the dates because it's very strategic. Now, that moves me to our next guy, Sam Cooke, which is one of the names that came up on VC Live today. And I was like, wow, this is interesting, man. You know, it's like you get that connection. It's like, okay, maybe I'm on to something. Maybe I'm on this right track. And let's talk about Sam Cooke. Another mysterious situation. Let's talk about Sam Cooke. Another mysterious situation. We know who Sam Cooke was. He was a #1 crooner. He was loved by the women. He was loved by both black and white people. I mean, Sam Cooke was that guy. You know, he was that guy. And you will know by some of the names of the songs that he would put out, like Having a Party, You Send Me, Change Game, and most of all, the real song, which I think was inspired by him having being in the company of one Muhammad Ali, who was a good friend of his, and Malcolm X, I'll say, which is not really talked about a lot. He's not well looked on. And look, here's the deal. I know people, especially when it comes to this religious situation, you always want to make a separation of certain things. But this is what I'm doing right here. This is what I'm doing. I'm taking that person and I'm taking their thoughts and ideals and how they view certain situations, especially if it pertains to me, my community, my people, and the well-being of it. I know how to decipher good from bad. Here's the deal. A lot of say, do you know how bad information turns good? This is how bad information turns good. Bad information turns good when you have found out that it's bad information. So that's a good thing, that you found out it was bad information. I'm putting it out there for a reason. Think about it. Remember, like we always say, all conflict is not bad conflict. Deal with it on the front end. No man just wake up and want to do right. God has to draw him. Now, you might want to say he was serving this God, and he might want to say you was serving that God. I look at the man and the message. And was the message good for me? For my consumption? Would it help me grow to be a better person, a better man, a better father, and the likes? Okay, so now we got Malcolm here, right? Now we got Sam Cooke. We right at Sam Cooke. Now Sam was doing really well until he started rubbing shoulders with, like I say, one Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X. And maybe they got into his ear and they was encouraging him about how powerful his voice actually is and the impact that he have on our community and our people and how he's so loved and well loved. Use it not only for the empowerment or being rich, use it for the uplifting of a nation of people that's being left behind. You know, a lot of people probably saw the movie one Night in Miami. I checked it out, but I know how Hollywood does stuff. Hollywood would take something, and after they finish with it, it'd be a jacked up story. So I don't even want to deal with that. But I know the incident did happen with Sam Cooke, Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, and Jim Brown. And maybe that has some effect on Sam. However, Sam was inspired at that moment that he came up with a song called A Change Gonna Come. That was the decision, the valley of decisions. So after he come up with A Change Is Gonna Come, they say it was first debuted on live on the Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson in February the 7th in 1964. However, they say there's no record that exists that clarifies that. Whatever. But so here's the deal. He never got a chance to hear that song released. Because some kind of way, something happened in a hotel room, a cheap hotel room, as a matter of fact, which he could have afforded more. But one thing went from one thing to another, from meeting a young lady in a bar to going to this room to looking as if he was trying to essay her, and now she's just hysterical. She runs out the room with his pants and money and whatever, and he goes up and get engaged with the I'm not saying the owner, but maybe the manager at that particular hotel. Some kind of way a confrontation happened. Sam Cooke ends up unalived. Isn't that something? While he was singing You Send Me and having a party and Cupid and Change Game, and he was singing all of these songs and they was loving on him, the minute he decided that he would think about funding Malcolm's movement and coming up with lyrics to a song like A Change Is Gonna Come, what are you doing, Sam? Are you deflecting? Remember Billie Holiday, Strange Fruit. Are you deflecting from us? So somehow, Sam Cooke, in December the 11th, 1964, Sam Cooke is unalive. What? I mean, I cannot make this up. No deflection. Stay in tune with what I will have you to stay in tune with. Just absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. That moves me to the young man that I was just talking to you about, Mr. Malcolm X. Born in Omaha, Nebraska, but mainly resided in Lansing, Michigan. Shout out, VC. Yeah. Later resided in Lansing, Michigan. He was born May 1925. And of course, we know who Malcolm was and what Malcolm represented. Malcolm was somewhat of, they were called a radical. He was not really loved by the people in high places because his voice was powerful. His message was powerful and it was resonating. So the conspiracy comes, he was up under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, his main top minister, and some kind of way they fell out. I don't want to get involved into all of that, whatever, but we know some kind of way they parted. That was the divide that the people in high places needed for number one. Now, once Malcolm finds out that, things are going on that doesn't sound like the Nation of Islam could be doing this to him, he realized himself, this is people in high places that are doing these things to me. And he felt a threat. He felt a threat going on for his livelihood. He felt it. And I'm going to tell you, it's just something else. the way this stuff happens, man. And like we say, we cannot make this stuff up, man. Now, here we go. Malcolm's most famous speech, the ballot or the bullet. He did that speech April of 1964. He did that speech April of 1964. And all of a sudden, after he kind of really exposed a situation that was going on about this March on Washington situation, which I'll talk about it when I bring my next guy up. But he exposed some about the March on Washington situation. That was not a good thing either. His voice was very powerful, very informative. After that, April of 1964, famous speech, the ballot or the bullet. February the 21st, 1965, less than a year later, Malcolm is taken away. And they claim by the people that he parted from, but here's another whole conspiracy once you look into it. In the chain of event, it doesn't all line up. I'm not going to get into the logistics of it. However, all I'm trying to get you to see is every time, whenever you break away from what the status quo is, from what the people in high places think you should be operating in, then you become not only a problem, but a threat. And once you become a threat, we have to kind of do away with the threat. We have to rid ourselves of this threat. So after that ballot or the bullet, famous speech from Malcolm, less than a year later, February 21st, 1965, he's no more. The speech was on April 1964. They move fast, if I may say. Now, that which brings me to the guy that I said was tutored by Medgar Evers, MLK. Now, mind you, people, a lot of these people that I'm highlighting today, some of you guys may like them, some of you guys might hate them. Either or, it doesn't really matter with me. I'm not even trying to do this. I want to show you something. I just want to take you somewhere. We're talking about the value of decisions. Martin born in Atlanta, Georgia, January 15, 1929. Okay? Now, of course, like I told you, tutored by Medgar Evers. Here's the thing. Immediately after Martin comes into play, and there's a uprising, it's going to be a march on Washington. Now, we've all been led to believe that was totally Martin's ideal. However, when the federal government contacted Martin, like, what are you doing? What do you mean marching on Washington? Why don't we know anything about it? Martin responds, oh, no. What do you mean? What march? I don't know anything about it. This march was actually a grassroots level march that was actually introduced early in the 1900s, like 1941, something about A. Philip Randolph. Anyway, it kind of dissipated. And it was really because at that particular time that the World War II situation that was going on. However, it kind of died down, but then it lifted back up. This march on Washington at a grassroots level. Martin didn't know anything about it. He knew nothing about it. However, Malcolm had already pre-warned us that they were never over this. This was a grassroots thing. So the people in high places, they had to find someone to place over this particular protest or this march on Washington so it can stay organized. We cannot have a group of people come to the Capitol and not be, we'll say, managed. How about that? Because if it's just a grassroots level and there's people from everywhere just meet, we don't know how this thing could turn out. So Martin and 5 other guys, A. Philip Randolph, Wendy M. Young Jr., He was over the Urban League. James Farmer, Roy Wilkins with the NAACP, and John Lewis. These 6 guys was now from the way I have read, I'm still going to say allegedly, was welcome to the Capitol by JFK. Now I'm gonna tell you something. This is the weird part. Like I said, we can't make this stuff up, right? Malcolm is pretty much out of here, right? So we got these guys. JFK called Martin and the other 5 guys I just named to the White House, appointed them over the March on Washington 10 days after Medgar Evers passing, or I'll say being unalived, because that's really what happened. He didn't pass. After he was unalived. I can't make this up. Martin got a call from JFK coming to Washington 10 days after. Okay, here we go. Medgar out of here, June the 12th, 1963. Martin and the other 5 guys get an invite to the White House, June the 22nd, 1963. You get that? Medgar, June the 12th, 1963, no more. Invite to the White House, June the 22nd, 1963, 10 days after Medgar. Martin and the 5 guys get appointed to be over the March on Washington. So now it's in order. And even his speech that Martin gave, they say he's the author of the speech, but really the editor of the speech was a Jewish guy. I hate to break the news, but anyway, you would want to say that was all Martin, just Martin alone, off his passion for his people. But Martin realized something after he got further into the movement. He realized that what he was asking for wasn't exactly what he thought he was going to get. And after he saw what he was getting, he felt like he had led his people, in his own words, into a burning house. Fighting for integration and wanting to be one with the people that's running this nation now, wanting to eat at the same restaurants, go to the same school, live in the same neighborhood, oddity and da-da-da, all of that. He realized that it has changed my people. And I heard also from Dr. Claude Anderson, who you heard from at the opening of this post here, Dr. Claude Anderson, which, I had 2 books here. One of the book called Black Labor, White Wealth, and Dirty Little Secrets. And in my transitioning from moving, man, to where I am now, I dislocated. Those are 2 books that I can't find, which is a couple of more books that I really, really been looking for that's a part of my library that I don't have anymore. But however, Dr. Claude Anderson would suggest that it was really not a good thing. Even that Rosa Parks thing, like, we're going to get on this bus because we want to ride on the front of the bus. My mother was a part of that, and she explained some of that to me too. I can understand the passion and how you want to feel equal to certain people, and you don't want to be told what you can't do. But however, in an indirect way, the push for riding on the front of the bus actually ran Black businesses out of business. According to Claude Anderson, you had southern states, and then they had Black buses. They did. They had there were companies that owned buses that Black people particularly actually rode on. So it wasn't like they didn't have a form of transportation. They just felt like that they was being second class when it came to riding on the man's bus. So by doing so, that movement ran the Black bus companies out of business. See how Martin say, well, I think what happened is I led my people into a burning house. I meant one thing, but it turned out another way. The valley of decisions. The valley of decisions, man. It can affect you negatively or positively. And if you're going in not knowing or unknowingly what the outcome is going to be, then you got to deal with it. You got to deal with the turnout. You got to deal with that. So, like I say, man, you can't make this up. You can't make this up. But I'm also going to tell you this here. This is just for this is for free. This is for a side note. This is just for a side note because I've been mainly focusing on us. But I want to throw this in anyway so that the millennials and Gen Z are understand and know the impact and the wickedness of these acts, man, that was happening and how it was the domino effect. One after another, tragics. Remember I said JFK invited those 6 guys, Martin and the other 5 guys that I named, to the White House to appoint them over the March on Washington, right? He did that 10 days after Medgar Evers unalived, June 22nd, 1963. Now let me tell you what happened to JFK. Let me tell you what happened to JFK 5 months later. Y'all know, November 22nd, 1963, same year. 5 months later, the guy that invited Martin and the 5 guys to the White House to appoint them over the civil rights, over the March on Washington, this guy is unalive on national TV. And it's still a conspiracy today to actually what happened to him. That's just a side note. This is just a side note. These people don't play. And you need to be on your P's and Q's and understand that they don't play and understand where this thing is headed and where you need to be going and whose side you really on, who you really need to focus on, and get away from all these distractions that's constantly thrown in your face. Case in point, VC was talking about it today. It's like this is the last day. Here we go again, quote unquote, the last day of Black History Month, February. And look what happened today. The U.S. is in conflict with Iran. The king or the prince of Persia. You ever heard that term before? Because that's what Iran is. Today's Iran is biblical day Persia. Just like today's Iraq is biblical day Babylonia. This is a spiritual war, my sisters, my brothers. Spiritual wickedness in high places. The ruler of this dirt, the ruler of darkness, and the ruler of this world. I threw him in for a side note. Let's get back to the people that I wanted to talk about this month. Okay, this brings me to, is it my last guy here I'm going to talk about, who is Bob Marley. How about that? Bob Marley. And I don't know if VC picked it up today. It was one of the people that was on it live. They brought up a quote from Bob Marley, and I was like, man, see, this is just really doubling down on what I had already said I was going to talk about. It encouraged me a lot more to move forward with this conversation, because it may seem like we're dealing with people that may not mean nothing, but if you listen to what I'm telling you and what these people did and their decision making and what they were trying to accomplish, it was in your best interest. And we need to keep with that same thought. We need to keep with that. Sometimes you have to sacrifice for the better good. It was put in my spirit one time I was going through trouble, and it said, sacrifice qualifies you for the next level. Yahshua's sacrifice qualified him for the next level. Sacrifice qualifies you for the next level. So let's talk about Bob Marley, my Aristophanean brother, the Trinidadian man. He was born in 9 Mile, Jamaica, April the 7th. No, Bob Marley was born February the 6th, 1945. Borderline. He right at the beginning of the baby boomers, because the baby boomers started in 1946. So Bob Marley born in 1945, but most of his life he lived with the baby boomers. So we'll classify him as a baby boomer. And all these people were young too. I'm gonna tell you the age at the end, but at the end of the day, his name was really Robert Nestle Marley. Robert Nestor Marley. But you know how people change the name. They change it from Robert to Bob. They change it from William to Bill. They change it from James to Jim. You know, they just give you a name. But anyway, we know him as Bob Marley. So Bob Marley was known for the message in the music. You know, one of his most popular songs would be Three Little Birds or One Love, Redemption Song, No Woman, No Cry. For all you reggae lovers, man, y'all know these songs are jumping off the page at you. Because if you listen to the lyrics of the song, you will hear the message in the music. And that's why he was a problem. The messaging in the music coming from a third world country, Jamaica. Jamaica, man, you know? And they had a problem with him and his Aristophanean ways, because at that particular time, marijuana was not popular, although it's been legalized today in most states in the United States. But he lived off that. He always said that it was a herb from the ground and that it helped him in many ways. And he was frowned upon because of that. I got to throw that out there to the millennials and the Gen Zers. Bob Marley was a heavy marijuana user, and I'm not trying to influence you to do so. I don't. Okay? So I'm not influencing you to do so. That was just his thing. But here, like we say again, all conflict is not bad conflict. You deal with it on the front end. So if that was his thing, that was his thing. My thing that I want to focus on is the message, the messaging in the music. This man was something else, man. And his father was a British guy who, and he went from 9 Mile, Jamaica, and he later moved in Trenchtown, which is the slums of Kingston. He dropped out of high school at 14 years old, and he formed the band, the Wailers. So you want to say, well, you want to highlight a guy like that? Of course I do. I want to highlight a guy like that, because through his music alone, he brought two prime ministers together that was at war, and then they decided they wanted to make peace from listening to his music, and they were going to accompany him at one of his concerts. However, a few days before his concert, they attempted to take his life. They attempted to unalive him. So his next concert, he was leery. And when I say they, we talking about people in high places again, because they didn't like that move. They didn't like the power that he had. How can a guy like this here move the people, the heads of states? How can you do that? Through music. And the music was far-reaching, and it touched the hearts, and it moved the mind of people. And through his music and his messaging, he became one of the most famous reggae singer that would ever live. So they attempted, and it didn't fall through. However, in 1981, he suffered a passing. It was bad. It wasn't a good thing, but it's something that he knew. He chose. It was a decision. The value of decisions again. They felt like the doctors felt like they could have saved him or they could have helped him. However, why would you trust a people like that when they've already made an attempt to remove you? Why? So I get it. I understand it. I see it. But I want to tell you guys something. What we just covered the calm before or after the storm, and in the valley of decisions. I want to do a few quotes from these guys. I already told you the quote from Emmett Till's mom and the one Billie Holiday. I'm going to give you the quote from Medgar Evers now. He said, "You can kill a man, but you can't kill an ideal." How about Sam Cooke? In response to his oratory and voice, this is what Sam Cooke say: "Well, that's very kind of you, but voices ought not to be measured by how pretty they are. Instead, they matter only if they convince you that they are telling the truth." Listen to me, today's artists, R&B singers, famous rappers. Check this out. This is what Malcolm says. Malcolm says, "Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today." Listen to the quotes of these people. Listen to what they drop on you. And what does Martin say? Martin say, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Well, what do you think about that? And then my friend Bob Marley, he says, "True friends are like stars. You can only recognize them when it's dark around you." Did you catch that? I want to read that one again, because you may have to think on that one. True friends are like stars. You know, the stars in the sky. Not movie stars, but the stars in the sky. True friends are like stars. You can only recognize them when it's dark around you. Millennials, Gen Zers, hold to that. That's what these people had to offer. Probably wouldn't have said nothing about none of these people in school. No, I take that back. You probably would have heard about Martin in school. He's about the only one. I'm not sure about Emmett Till, but I know for sure MLK, you would have heard about him in school. I just want to share some other things with you about these people, because MLK would have been all right until he started getting in America's foreign policies. Once he started dealing with American foreign policy, he was a threat. It was time to go. Remember, he got the invite to the White House. Remember? He didn't get a chance to follow through, because once he did whatever he needed to do, by that time, we had a guy by the name of LBJ, or Lyndon B. Johnson, had to finish dealing with MLK. And up on the Lyndon B. Johnson watch, 3 years after Malcolm, MLK. However, within 26 years, we had 9 people gone. Within 26 years, from 1955 to 1981, we had 9 people. And these were, for me, I'll say, were very important people. You're not going to talk about these people a lot. It was messaging in their music. It was messaging in their voices. It was messaging in even their walk. And Emmett Till made a decision, was lied upon. But his mother, Miss Mamie Till Mobley. I'm gonna say it again, and we're gonna start closing this down. This is what she said. Her quote: "When people saw what had happened to my son, men stood up who never stood up before." When we gonna stand up, bro? When we gonna stand up, bro? When we gonna stand up, bro? If I can just summarize this, and then I'm just gonna, I gotta read something that I want you guys to hear. And this for the people that they used to me going into the book, into the scriptures, and giving them something and reading something. That's fine and dandy. Right now, we talking about a movement, man. If you can't get the fleshly movement, you definitely ain't gonna get the spiritual. If you can't get the fleshly carnal movement, what makes you think you're ready for a spiritual movement? If you don't get this message socially, because this was a social thing that was going on. There was no civility in it at all. There was no mercy at all. It was a lot of cruel things happen and was washed under the rug. And it was a chaining event. And if you saw, it didn't really matter who it was, because I'm going to throw another one in for you too. Because I said 9 people, so you'll understand. Because you'd be like, he didn't say nothing about 9 people. I said it was in 26 years, there's 9 people gone. And the 7 were the ones that I really wanted to focus on, being Emmett Till, Billie Holiday, Medgar Evers, Sam Cooke, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Bob Marley. And I did tell you about JFK. So it was another thing that happened too with RFK. Shortly after Martin, and RFK running for the, he had already won the Democratic nomination to be the next Kennedy in the White House. But no way. One Kennedy gone, we don't need you. So as I summarize this, check this out. I want to start again. August 28, 1955, Emmett Till tragically gone. 4 years later, Billie Holiday sadly gone. 4 years after that, Medgar Evers unalive in his home driveway after a famous speech on national TV. 39 days later, he was gone. 10 days after that, the incident with Martin and the 5 others were summoned to the White House. And by the time JFK invited them to the White House to appoint them over the March on Washington, 5 months later, he's out of here. 1 year later, Sam Cooke mysteriously unaliving. Wow. After potential funding Malcolm's movement. And then 2 months later, okay, Malcolm, no more. Another conspiracy. And then 3 years after that, we have MLK taken away. All of this stuff is public, man. Most of it is. Malcolm. And then we have RFK unalive on national TV, just like his brother. And then 13 years after that, we have Bob Marley. That's a short span. There's some Gen Zers out there right now. Let me see if I can do. Let me make sure. There might be some Gen Zers out there that might be 26 years old. So in 26 years, you got 9 very important people. No more. Gone. Yes. All about decision making, my friend. All about decision making, the valley of decisions. And I'm going to read this to you, and we're going to close this out. I just wanted to drop some information, man, about some people. And like I said, I'm not just targeting whether it's Black History Month, man. We history, period. Or we our own story, because in the words of Malcolm, his story is his story. KRS-One say, learn a little real story, which is your story. The true story, your story. That's KRS-One right there. Messaging again in the music. We're losing our messages in our music. Hopefully we can find it again. Come on, scripture readers, y'all love this. Go to Joel, the 3rd chapter. I'm going to read 8 through 15, and I'm going to close it down. And this is what Joel, the 3rd chapter, verse 8 through 15 will suggest to us. And I'm not going to do like I usually do. I just want to read this, and I might drop a few Paleo Hebrew meanings, and we're going to leave it alone. We're going to close this down. Okay, here we go. Joel, the 3rd chapter, starting at the 8th verse, he said, and I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hands of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken it, or the Spirit of God has spoken it. to a people far from us selling to you. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there will I sit to judge all the heathens round about. But put ye the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full. The fat overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitude in the valley of decision. But the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw from their shining. Marley said, a true friend is like the stars. You don't see them until there's darkness all around you. The moon itself is the Hebrew meaning is like a carnal good or a fleshly good. And then when you see that the sun talking about being dark, and which represents no knowledge, the word darkness represents no knowledge. And then the sun is wisdom and knowledge. Okay, so the sun and the moon shall be darkened. So the knowledge between the carnal and wisdom is going to be no more. It's going to be taken away from you. Okay, yeah, and that's what we are now. And then even the judge is to teach. Don't judge me. No, the judge is to teach or to counsel one. Okay? Or it might be one's elect. You got to understand. See, the word in those days doesn't mean what the word means today. However, remember, he's calling them to where? The land of, what did he say? He said Jehoshaphat, right? He said, for the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. Well, Jehoshaphat in the Hebrew meaning is the Lord is judge. Okay, the Lord is what? He's the teacher. He's the counselor. He will counsel those who need to be. And then the valley of decision. The valley is what we call worship. So now you in the valley of decision. Who you gonna worship? Valley is the representation of worship in the Paleo Hebrew meaning. You're in the valley of decision. Decide. Who you gonna worship? What you gonna worship? That spiritual wickedness in high places? Or you would be the weak to say, I'm strong. Let's get this right, brothers and sisters. Sure appreciate you today for tuning in with me. This is something I felt the need to do. It's probably a little bit different. You know, we're going to be moving forward. I wanted to have guests on for this month, but, you know, being that things didn't quite go according to plan, I'm hoping that for the month of March and April, you know, I've already extended a couple of invitations, and you, if you're listening to this post, you know who you are. I've already extended the invitation for you to be a guest on this show. I was talking about this grassroots level thing. I'm not looking for anything out of it. I just like to, if I invite you to be a message on my podcast, that means I like the messaging that you're delivering, and it's interesting, and I care for others to know the message that you are informed on. And right now, I have an extended message, but I'm extending a message to my brother VC. You know who you are, bro. You know who you are. I enjoyed your topic today. Been listening to you now for a little bit better than a week. One day we get together, man, and maybe I can have you for a host on the podcast, and we can dialogue, chop it up. You know, and then here's the deal. A lot of times, you know, we think we always have to agree with everything somebody say all the time. That ain't the way this go, man. That's why I say all conflict ain't bad flick. You deal with it on the front end. No man just wake up and want to do right. God has to draw him, man. And there's compromise. You know what I'm saying? The conventional oven and the microwave can coexist in the same kitchen. Millennials, Gen Zers, baby boomers, Gen Xers, the conventional oven and the microwave can coexist in the same kitchen. And right now, if you walk in your own kitchen, more than likely you got them both in there. Which one you gonna throw away? Which one you gonna throw out? I suggest we need them both. Neither one should be thrown away. Now, having said all that, I need you guys to listen to another thing on the back end that Brother Claude Anderson went on the front end. I'm gonna let you hear a bit about Malcolm on his back end. You may not, you take it how you want it, man. Take it with a grain of salt. It's going to be all right. You'll be fine. And then we're going to go into Kay's meal of the day. And of course, like we always drop our mystery building, this is going to be a part of the back end of this post. I'm going to be seeing you again. And to those people that I extended to be a guest on this podcast with, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys soon. The invitation is open. I trust you with my audience because I trust my audience is wise enough to be able to decipher between good information and bad information. What makes bad information good is good that you knew it was bad information. On that note, this is Jay from K&J, What 5 HT channel. This is how we do it all the way across the board. Saying things that other people want to say but afraid to say. We gonna say it right here. We engage. That's right. That's what we do. We kind of edgy sometimes. And a lot of people, they don't like to deal with the scripture stuff. Okay, that's fine. I probably just said some stuff that the people that deal with scripture didn't want to hear. It don't matter. I'm hoping it all worked for your good. So until then, this is Jay tuning out. And like I always say, what the flux? I'm out of here.
The black man is the original man. He is the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe.
We did not come to America on slave ships. We were already here. We are the original man. This is our land. We've been here since time immemorial.
Well, Malcolm, if your people really were so advanced, why are they always at the bottom of every chart?
Because you rigged the damn chart. You ran eugenics, sabotaged our schools, assassinated our leaders, and now you dare to call the victim ignorant? That ain't ignorance. It's engineered erasure by design.
This ain't no cartoon. It's a psychological weapon designed to train your children to laugh at their own destruction. They branded us with ink so they could steal with impunity, then blamed us for bleeding.
But surely, Mr. X, these projects were built to help your communities.
Projects? You call eugenics and concrete cages help? They studied us like lab rats, boxed the black man in, cut off resources, sterilized our women, then labeled us dumb for not... You keep calling us African Americans to keep us from realizing we're the true proprietors of the American landmass. That name is a diversion, a legal trap that lets you steal the allodial title.
What? We let you in with peace and you stole the land, broke every treaty, enslaved our children, and even now your behavior hasn't changed. You rape the earth and call us criminals.
You orchestrated centuries of eugenics, sterilization, and institutional sabotage, and then you sit here suit and tie telling me the black man is undereducated? That's not folly. That's premeditated sociogenetic war. You dare to call my people uneducated while quoting books we wrote and systems we built. You are the Tomahawk, the imitator civilized by us, then turned thief.
What
You ever disrespect my people like that again, I'll kill you. You hear me? Ever again. I'll kill you. The term Asiatic black man don't mean from Asia overseas. It means the original man of the entire continental landmass once called Asia before your maps were redrawn. They buried our mound cities and pyramid towns under national parks and called them hills because they couldn't explain how a savage built what their top engineers still can't replicate. They tell you to look to Africa for your roots. But Africa is a Latin word for a Carthaginian province. You are an Asiatic black man. Do you know who owns the patent on the term African American? A corporation in North Carolina that trademarks it to sell beef and pork? They've turned your identity into a commodity, so you'll never realize that you are the aboriginal title holders of this land. And the United States Corporation is squatting on... We did not come to America on slave ships. We were already here. We are the original man, maker, owner, cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. This is our land.
White folks stole our languages, our sciences, our gods, then wrote books calling us culturalists. They say we got no culture, but they were the ones crawling on all fours in the caves of Europe while we were mapping stars.
Your story didn't start at a door of no return. The history books give us the Wild West to hide the Asiatic period of North America, when we were the masters of mechanized warfare and advanced technology. They buried our mountain cities and pyramid towns on...
Well, Malcolm, if your people really were so advanced, why are they always at the bottom of every chart?
Well, because you rigged the damn chart. You ran eugenics, sabotaged our schools, assassinated our leaders, and now you dare to call the victim ignorant? Let me make something painfully clear. All skin folk are not kinfolk. There exists a class of well-paid boule blacks who perform obedience for white approval. They laugh at our...
Some of them sit comfortably in rooms like this, more disturbed by my honesty than by the destruction of our people. History will remember who stood upright and who danced in religions. The United States is a corporation formed after the Civil War to manage people, not free them.
We are not immigrants. We are the indigenous, aboriginal, more. The very soil speaks our name before ships, before lies, before history was hijacked.
Your story didn't start at a door of no return. It began when the world was called Asia. The term Asiatic black man don't mean from Asia overseas. It means the original man of the entire continental landmass once called Asia before your maps were redrawn.
It's one of the biggest mysteries on Earth. A temple so massive, it can be seen from space. But the strangest part? We still don't know exactly how it was built. Welcome to Angkor Wat, a 12th century masterpiece hidden in the jungles of Cambodia. It's larger than the Vatican, built from 5 million tons of stone, and every block fits together so precisely. You can't slide a credit card through the seams. No cranes. No metal tools. No records of construction. Yet its walls are carved with more than 3,000 goddesses, each with a unique face, none repeated. And here's where it gets weird. The temple's central axis lines up perfectly, with the sunrise on the spring equinox. It's a giant stone calendar, aligned to the stars with NASA-level precision. But centuries later, the Khmer Empire vanished. No war, no fire, no trace. The jungle swallowed everything, as if the builders simply disappeared overnight. Some say it was climate collapse. Others whisper it was divine intervention. Either way, Angkor Wat still stands. Silent, flawless, and staring straight at the heavens. Like it's waiting for whoever built it to come back.